at it, but I.
Which lady?
Which lady? Yeah, otherwise. Morning.
Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, October 16th, 2024 at 10:01 a.m. If you stand, please, as everybody is, and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to make a quick note that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And that's why I am attired in pink, and
sadly, I don't have many pink things.
That's
in my
all I
It would have been a t-shirt. I didn't feel that was.
to bring awareness to and emphasize to everybody, whether it's breast cancer or other forms of cancer, to get regular screening. And I think this day and age, they play the however many degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. I think that degree of separation is pretty small when it comes to cancer and how it touches everybody's lives. It touched my life for my father when I was very young, and other members of my family throughout my life. So cancer is a very hot button topic for me. I don't know. I don't understand how our community, our society can not find better treatments and cures and whatnot for something that's been plaguing us for decades. So with that said, I wanted to recognize that today and encourage everyone to get their regular screenings.
Male and female.
Yes. With that said, we've already taken care of voucher approval, late item, agenda late items, and I believe, Mr. Showman, you had.
Yes, the drought declaration. I would like to make it an action item that we approve our emergency management director to get that for the court to execute.
Okay.
Because we are in a current D1 drought, which allows her to submit that.
Add that to new business. Any other late items?
I don't know if you want to do it for discussion with the BIC, just that it's coming up, and I would hate to miss it. It's maybe just under a discussion item of new business. We could give a brief update on that and have a little discussion around it. The Blues Intergovernmental Council.
Yeah.
Sorry, I hate acronyms, but I use them too much now.
Do you want to add that as an actual agenda item or just under general deliberation?
Make sure maybe we put it on under general deliberation, but
As an
that way
item.
it gets covered
Okay.
as an official item.
Any other items? Then I will entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
I move to approve today's Harney County Court meeting agenda with the additions discussed.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the Harney County Court agenda for October 16th, 2024. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and opposed? And hearing none, motion carries. And Brian Needham with the Veteran Services update is up next, but he must be running behind, so we shall just move right ahead to Jody Warnock and Community in Action update.
Question on the
Oh,
maybe.
why is that up there?
No, maybe best leave it. No.
No, actually, instead of the,
Well, I started it so I'd have it available for later on. There we go.
Now we get to look at you.
There we go.
oh no.
And whoever else speaks.
Anyway, so
Do you want me to stay right here? Do you want me to come in front of you?
you're okay right there. The owl searches around for whoever's talking and catches you. This is.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. So anyway, thanks for the invitation to be here today, Commissioner Dora. I appreciate that. A little bit about myself first. I am new with Community in Action. I have been with the agency for about a year and a half. I worked for the state of Idaho for about 20 years with the Division of Welfare. And then I moved to Oregon and worked for Community Action Agency in Pendleton for about 6 years. Speaking of cancer, my mom passed away in 2022. And I decided at that time it was important for me to be closer to my children. I have 3 small grandchildren. And the opportunity came up and the position came available for the executive director of Community Action. And I thought, this is wonderful. My kids live in Caldwell, let's give it a shot. So I have kind of a strange living situation. My husband still lives in Pendleton and I live in between Notice and Parma. But that's just how we work. And I get to see my kids on a daily basis and it makes me a very happy person. A little bit about Community Action. Community Action was established in 2009. It was a very small agency with some CSBG funding. And obviously it's grown in the last 15 years. Barb, the previous director, she was involved when it was established in 2009. So it was very difficult for her to give up the reins and let somebody else take a chance. So we have a lot of services that we offer. We are branching out with some new services. We have weatherization services. We have energy. We have some res rehab. And that covers Malheur and Harney counties individually within the different cities. And then we have our homeless and housing. And I think I'm primarily here today to talk about homeless. And I am very straightforward and very to the point. So hopefully I don't offend anybody. And if I do, I'll apologize. Lynn knows that I'm kind of like this. So what was it in January of 23, February 23, something like that. It was right after I started with Community in Action. The governor had an executive order, and now I think we're in our 4th one to get people off the streets and safely housed. And has given the communities different ways to do that. Thank goodness, because Harney County, Malheur County, we are not the same as Salem, and we appreciate that. So in Ontario, previous to the executive order, we had a site with 16 tiny shelters. And by tiny shelters, I mean, you could probably fit 4 of them in this room. There's cots in there, there's a microwave, there's a fridge. We have on-site restrooms and water. And then we provide food when funding is available. So when that shelter was opened, I want to say in 2020, it was strictly a winter shelter. So we would open it the first part of November and we would move everybody out typically the end of March, sometimes April, depending on funding. So with the executive order, we did get some funding to purchase the property and additional funding to keep the shelters open year round. So we've had to add some, or we've had to do some modifications because initially we just had heat in the shelters and now of course we have AC as well. And we're in the process of getting bids to actually construct a nice restroom facility and probably a kitchen site so that we can offer some different classes there. So that's been a huge success for Ontario. The agreement was with our city and county leaders is that we would have somebody there 24/7 on site. So our case managers are there 4 days a week. And then we have others that cover the off hours and also the weekends. So we have somebody there 24/7. It's been pretty successful. It's been really successful. We have very little issues. We have a really great relationship with Ontario PD and also the Malheur County Sheriff and Lifeways. So typically if we're in a crisis situation, then they can assist and we can get it, taken care of very quickly. Also with the additional funding, we have partnered with, Housing Authority of Mount Airy and Hardin County. They were in the middle of a turnkey project, and that was special funding from Oregon Community Foundation. And they purchased an old apartment complex that was 17 units, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, and completely renovated it. And it's really a beautiful site. So what we do with our shelter is we get folks off the street and we get them in the shelter and we start case management. And we really see what their goals are, what their needs are, what their service levels are, and kind of start to build that relationship. And then we determine, as we work with them, what their next step will be. Sometimes the next step is the turnkey project. And sometimes the next step is a congregate rapid rehousing project that we have in Ontario as well. It's a very large house with 10 bedrooms, maybe 4 bathrooms, some really nice living space. And everybody, of course, has their separate bedrooms and you know, they have the kitchen and the bathroom and the facilities that they use together. We typically try to keep the turnkey for families and youth. We realize that youth ages 14 to 24 are typically, they don't do well with our unhoused neighbors. And, you know, sometimes our unhoused neighbors are difficult to work with. And not because they're unhoused, but because of the underlying conditions that we deal with. Behavioral health, mental health, lack of family support, lack of community support, all the rest. And so once we get the folks into the rapid rehousing projects, then we do some really, really intense case management and get them into a permanent housing solution. So we have some really great relationships with our local realtors and our local landlords. And even after they move off of out of our properties into their own permanent housing, we still continue to case manage and support them. One of the many that a lot of people don't understand is a lot of times unhoused people, it's really difficult for them to be successful when we house them. The norm for them is to be unhoused. So it is quite a process for us to get them housed permanently and for them to be successful. The other great relationship that we have in Ontario is with our assisted living facilities. As many of you probably know, we're seeing a higher number of older adults that are homeless. And their needs level is typically higher. So they're figuring out that really they should not be living alone. So we've been able to house them permanently in assisted living facilities. When this started in 2023, we, because we provide services for Mount Airy and Hardin County, we did have meetings and conversations with folks here in Hardin County. And it was pretty obvious that the county, the city, whatever it may be, they were pretty sure that we did not have a homeless population here in Hardin County. As we continue to work through the process and we continue to work through the executive order, and people here locally have seen the success and our statewide partners have seen the success, I think that it's opening a bigger door that maybe Hardin County really does have a problem. I mean, is it a problem? No, but Hardin County does have homeless folks. So with that being said, I'm sure people are wondering, well, what are you gonna do? Well, right now, we can provide support through our outreach specialists. We do not have funding at this time to support a homeless shelter or a rapid rehousing project. But if there's an interest here, if there's support, if there's partners, that's something that we can look at for the next biennium, which starts in July. I mentioned outreach specialists. With the executive order, we did receive funding for outreach specialists in Harney and Mount Airy County, along with vehicles. We recruited here in Harney County and had no luck, so we decided to actually hire two in Harney County for a couple different reasons.
In
Did you-
I
Mal-
could not hear Ken.
I mean, Malheur, they said Harney, sorry. Hire two in Malheur County for a couple different reasons, because we couldn't find anybody here. And the second one is, it's just kind of safer to have two travel around together. They have a pickup with a canopy on it and they go to the homeless camps. We have several in Ontario area that they visit, Gentura and then all the way here. We have a great relationship with our BLM partners and like I said, our local law enforcement. So if there's a new camp that is discovered, then they'll reach out to us and, you know, let us know where it's at and what supplies they might need. The reason we think it's important to have an outreach specialist is a lot of times these folks are not ready for assistance and they're not ready for help. So if we can meet them where they're at, we can build that relationship, and then when they are ready, they'll give us a call and we'll be ready to help them.
Thank
That was
you,
a lot.
thank you, Jody.
So,
That
any
was good.
questions?
No, so as the county court members may recall that when Governor Kotek was doing a lot of her homeless push initiative when she first took office, all of the counties were told you need to do something and you need to regionalize in groups, and they were going to put us with Klamath and Lake, and I said, that doesn't make sense. Malheur's closer, we already have a housing authority we share. Malheur was far along, they're a different type of community with a lot of Head Start and hard work, where they actually did the types of transitional and other shelter housing that Jody just spoke about. And we said, we don't know that we could sustain anything here at this time, but there may be in the future. But for now, exactly what she said, we said, how about outreach and how about vehicle? And so with that type of truck and the two outreach specialists traveling together, if there was someone here who came to a state of readiness that needed help and they actually needed shelter and they didn't need to stay in Harney County, would they be able to get them to Malheur County? That was,
As long as we had an opening, you know, a lot of times
Right,
we have wait lists, but yes, of course, it's a phone call away. And we
I mean, is that
also,
vehicle enough where they could jump? I mean, you said it's a truck with a flat with a bed.
yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah, definitely, and that's why we purchased that type of vehicle. We also pass through funds to the senior center or outreach specialist. So Christy has some responsibilities that we have given to her to assist in those types of positions.
And the outreach specialist originally was posted on the employment website here for Burns, but there were no takers. So we originally were gonna have a local person be the outreach here who would work for them and be in communication with them, but that didn't work out. So I appreciate you giving us this update because we hadn't really had it as an agenda topic in a long time, and it's great to meet you, see you in person as well. So, thank you.
And the position is not off the table. When we can identify a need and we know that the position can be supported, we're not opposed to recruiting again in this area. And, I mean, it's probably better that we didn't successfully recruit because it's a brand new position. So we've made a lot of changes. And so I think that it would have been pretty confusing and pretty difficult in the very beginning, but we kind of have our ducks in a row now. So
Good point, good
yeah,
point.
we're doing a lot better.
So is there still sustained funding to do that? You talked about biennium, is it beyond that? What is your kind of window on the funding side of it?
Is it ever beyond that? Guaranteed beyond that. No.
Which makes it the challenge.
Am I concerned about sustainable funding? Not really. I'm a part of a few board groups that the governor have assigned, that she's assigned. So I think everybody realizes the success that we've had in the last year and a half, not just in our communities, but statewide. And I think we all recognize that when we get people off the streets, they have the potential to be more successful. You know, if you're housed and you're safe and you have food, then hopefully you're gonna get into treatment and you're going to deal with your addiction or your substance abuse, repair the family ties that you may have severed. So we're working on it.
Is there additional funding though? Because if you already have two and now here, if you were to be able to add one here, is there funding already available or would that be funding that you would petition for into the future?
Probably both. We could, if we budgeted correctly and we had community support, we could not fund 100%. We can fund the total shelter right now, but I think that money, I think we can get our hands on some money. Yeah, especially because there is nothing here. And, you know, we use the pit count numbers and we'll do the pit count again in January. And that's a really important time to show our state partners really what the issues are. And it's even more important that people in this room speak up when we have questions and say, yeah, you know, we do have our, you know, homeless neighbors here.
So I think, as I recall in the conversation and even in my conversations with the senior center, the hub, it was always recognized that we had an estimated population of homeless, houseless, of around 30 in the area, in the community. Out of that, and in the past, however many months or a year or whatever, since the outreach specialists have been employed, what kind of contacts have been made in Harney County? I know the city of Burns, you know, through their, through the legislature had to designate an area for camping and whatnot. Is it being utilized? Are any of our 30 homeless that fluctuates a little bit, but are they utilizing any of the services? Are the contacts being made?
I do not have those answers and I should have been more prepared. I should have gotten with Christy before I came today. As far as the outreach specialist, we just hired the second one about 6 weeks ago. I can't remember when it was that I talked to the commissioner, and it's
I think it was
July,
longer than 6 weeks ago, yeah.
was it end of July maybe?
Yeah.
So that's something that we're working out a schedule right now. And we're starting to reach out to see where those encampments are. So we will have conversations with them as much as they allow, and we can provide sleeping bags and we can apply or provide tents and we can help them fill out applications and, you know, let them know exactly what resources are available to them in this area.
On a personal experience, and past employment, I was a law enforcement officer with the Bureau of Land Management. So obviously I come in contact with these types of camps and whatnot on public lands. And I had one contact specifically that an individual, actually had relocated from the Crook County, Prineville area to Harney County and has since moved on, as last I knew, to Nevada. But I regularly checked on this individual. And, you know, as long as things were being picked up and maintained and whatever, I didn't have a problem with them and we just kind of worked with the individual. But in conversations with the individual, and I never thought about this before, but everything that individual owned was in the trailer that she moved around. And I tried to talk to her about, you know, seeking out some kind of shelter, long-term, permanent residency, whatever. But that's her whole life. Was in that trailer. How do you guys deal with that with people that have been homeless for a long time? I mean, because some apartment buildings and whatnot are not going to want this ratty trailer or whatever in their parking lot. So how do you deal with? I mean, that's their whole world. All their belongings are in that. How do you deal with that?
Relationships and trust. That's why we start with the outreach specialists, and obviously we can't pressure people to become housed. You know, it's not going to work. But we start those conversations. If you were to be housed, what can we do with the trailer? Would you be interested in selling it? Could we put it in storage? Can we help you go through it? Do you want to repair it so you can go camping? You know, it's just a variety. it's so different for
From
everybody.
case to case, yeah.
We had a gentleman here. Oh. It's been probably 2 months ago. And he was in that situation, and it was determined that he really needed a higher level of care and wasn't able to live independently. And as soon as we got him housed, safely housed, permanently housed, and we got the belongings that he wanted, moved into his little apartment, then he was willing to part with that.
Was that here locally in Harney County or
No, it was in Mount
out here? Okay.
Yeah,
I'd be, granted, you just hired the second person, but I'd be interested to know and follow up what kind of, contacts and, offerings of resources and help and whatnot that takes place here in Harney County.
yeah, for sure. And from here, I'm actually going to meet with Christy and Angie at the senior center. So I will dig in to see exactly what Christy's been working on as well, and we'll get them connected. And yeah, we've had great success in Malheur, and I know Harney does not always want to hear about Malheur, but we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just how it is. And that's where we live. And that's where, we work on a daily basis. So we'll make the mistakes in Malheur County, and then we'll do better in Harney.
I have a question. I know it's fairly early in the game, but do you have any data on your success rate? How, like, what percentage you've decreased houselessness?
That, to decrease a percentage or several in houselessness is very hard to measure because we don't really know how many houseless folks we have. We do know how many we've gotten off the streets into our tiny shelters and into rapid rehousing and permanent housing. Yes, we definitely have that data.
And how many have the longevity of their success and that kind of stuff? Do you dial it down that far? I'm not expecting. those
Knock
numbers
on
right
wood.
now. I'm just curious.
I would love to share the numbers with you guys, and I can email somebody and they can share them. Knock on wood, because of our case managers and the relationships that they establish with our folks, we're very successful. We have one, establishment that we've had, I think we housed our first person in January of 23, and this is, PSH housing, which is permanent, supportive housing, which means we will continue to case manage them as long as we need to. We have 4 different units, 4 or 6, anyway. We've had to, live with 1 person in 2 years, which is, it's really, really amazing. And those are the hardest to house and the hardest to serve, so.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm here as a board member on the Community in Action Board as a representative of Harney County. We have one other person. When I first was on the board, it was Shauna Withy and Pete Reynolds. Pete Reynolds was the elected official, and I would like to invite one of you elected officials to be on our board, because I think that is so important that you get the information from our team up front, and you create that liaison with Jody and the crew. So impressed with the shift that we've seen in some community elected officials who are on our board, who were a little resistant, but who have made this shift to understand the need for support for our community services for the houseless. And I really, really, being a cheerleader here to ask one of you to come and serve on our board as an elected official.
For the record, your name, please.
Thank you. My name is Lynn McClintock,
Thank you.
and I'm no longer on the Harney County Senior Center board. I termed out. But that's how I got involved the first time, because we received money from Community in Action for our weatherization and our energy assistance. And we are sub-recipients for the work we do here in Harney County. So it is very important that we keep this connection going, because we've done great great services for our community. And we've even through the summer and the warm months have had houseless sleeping under our beautiful hawthorn tree or on the bench at the bus stop at the building and or just on the ground. And I am an avid walker of the trail, as you know, and somebody was living in the culverts. I have not seen him lately. So we do have them, and I've seen evidence of them. And do they always pick up after themselves? No, but the fellow in the culvert's pretty tidy, so I guess he doesn't want to be kicked out. So I'm pleased to see that.
The board that you mentioned, that's the Community in Action Board.
Yes.
Okay.
We have community members, we have 3 elected officials, and that's very important that we have elected officials from municipalities in the area.
Do you have any forms and any process that you want to educate us about? And then we can at some point, see you.
I can share the forms with you. As far as boards, I think we make it pretty easy for our board. We meet on a quarterly basis.
Are the
Lynn-
meetings, Zoom accessible?
Yes.
Okay, that's
They are.
important. Thank you.
I like to travel over there, heaven knows why, but I do, like that little road, once every quarter, yeah.
It's just, as you others, I'm sure, experience, we have so many, the meetings have grown ever since COVID, so sometimes that travel time is what, so having that option is essential.
And we try to keep the meetings at about an hour and a half. I do send out,
Really good about that.
I send out updates at least on a monthly basis to all the board. So that we don't have to talk about absolutely everything that's happened in 90 days in, the hour and a half. But like, it's very, very important to have some, a spokesperson from Hardin County. We have the mayor of Nessa, we have city manager of Nessa, mayor of Vale, and we expect for them to come to us and say, this is what our city needs. This is what we're seeing. How can you help? Perfect.
Ma'am,
My name is Sue Ramsey, and I'm just a resident here, but what have you done about the man who's on Highway 20? He's been there for years. What do you do about him?
Is it that-
You can't make him move, but
outside of
what
Vale,
have you addressed him? Yes.
So I don't know that it has been addressed. And I thought that same thing this morning when I was traveling over here.
Had you not seen it before?
I have seen it a couple times.
Because he's been there for years.
Has he been there for years? I've never seen him out of his encampment.
No, he won't.
Oh, I have seen him, I waved at him.
So I made myself a mental note that we could definitely, if we have not made contact with him, we'll make contact with him.
Because I would say that would be proof of the pudding if you can assist him.
The sheriff's office over there is very familiar with them.
What's up?
The sheriff's office over there is very familiar with them, give us some background on it.
The other thing is, what is the criteria for the education, experience, whatever, what is the background of the outreach people that you hire? Are they homeless that you've converted?
They have lived experience. Yeah, not necessarily homeless, but they do have lived experience. And that's something that is very important to us. Most of our staff have lived experience in one way or
Sounds a
another.
lot like cemetery care, and so why aren't they more involved?
Why,
Excuse me, on that
why is a
matter,
lot of
the
people
outreach,
more involved?
outreach people will help get to know them, see what their needs are, and they will
identify services.
obviously connect them with local services that we already have as appropriate. It's not just always the housing, it's, to start them. And so cemetery care and the resources that we do have in Harney County that can help folks. That's why we originally wanted someone from Harney County who would already have those relationships with our local service providers, who could easily connect and hand off and introduce and all that.
And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it can take years to build relationship with these folks. We had somebody that was homeless for 14 years before we got him housed. I mean, that's a very, very, very long time. And trust is a big thing for these folks. A lot of times they think that we're a government agency and they don't want to deal with us. You know, so that's where it's baby steps for quite a while until they know that we're really there to help and support them and advocate for them. And then we can make it forward.
Do I dare ask another question?
You can ask as many questions as you want.
I will leave it for this one. How did? Maybe I lost my train of thought, but some of these homeless people have come from somewhere and some of them don't have any transportation. So I was under the impression that we were having homeless people shipped to us.
Yeah.
They can't find us. They don't walk 130 miles either way.
So I'm gonna tell you that comment really kind of puts a thorn in my ass because I've heard it for a very, very long time. And the community action agency that I worked at before was in Pendleton, right on the freeway too. And we had people, oh yeah, we saw the bus from Portland and in Portland, they're shipping them out. I have a lot of contacts and I have talked to a lot of homeless people and a lot of partners and a lot of case managers. And I have never said, I've never heard, yes, I was shipped here from Portland.
And why the river?
Well, I mean, anybody can start a rumor.
That's Harney County. We've all lived here long enough that happens.
It happens
Harney County.
everywhere, because nobody wants to address the issue and they wanna think that their county doesn't have an issue.
Yeah, I will say myself, I have seen no evidence of any kind of transportation of homeless in Harney County. Our location, geographic location, makes it somewhat prohibitive for some people to get here. But when some people do get here, it also makes it prohibitive for them to get out.
Right.
Some people will spend their last dime to get down the road, and this is where they get stuck at. I mean, I've seen it from the law enforcement side of things, and you know, and there are avenues. I know there, you know, through the dispatch services and other services here in town that helps get people bus tickets to get out. I mean, if that's their desire to leave, then that's worth helping them do that. But I don't, you know, sometimes people though, I've seen people too, where they get to Burns and they're not from here, they get here, they use their last dollar to get here, and it's, yeah, this is not a bad place. So they end up sticking around.
Well, and another thing that we see in Ontario is, families that are not able to necessarily, maybe they're not self-sufficient, they talk their family members into coming and staying with them in hopes that they can all become more successful and then end up in a homeless situation. You know, a lot of RVs, a lot of campers, they can only get so far, and then what do you do?
I thank you for your time.
I actually have two questions. One of them would be as far as like, as you were talking about some of the younger folks that you're trying to help house. How are you engaging the school districts and the funds available through the school districts to help with some of those needs? How have you tapped into that and have a good success with that?
We do not have that work with Harney County yet, and I have tried to contact a couple partners here without success. So I am not going to stop reaching out, but we do have that relationship in Malheur County, and it's been very successful. We have a youth drop-in center that's been open for almost a year now. And because of the relationships with the schools, we're actually getting that filled up in the afternoons for tutoring and to feed some kiddos, and we have shower facilities and things.
Okay, because there is funds allocated to them, and so I would really hope that they're partnering well
Funds
with
allocated to
to
somebody.
the school to help with the needs of these type of kids that are in those situations, and so that would be very important, make sure those funds are being spent accordingly and utilized as,
And that's not something we can control or mandate.
no, but it can be strongly encouraged. So, and then the second part is if someone does see someone in a houseless situation here, what would be the protocol, I guess, for the public at large to have as a takeaway? You know, do they reach out to Chrissy at the senior center? Is that,
Yes.
you know, something that we're advertising of? If you do see someone in that situation, here's how we try to support them as a community.
Yes, And I'm sure that you guys probably have a website or something, so my plan is, when I get back to the office, is kind of recap this conversation. And then share some contact information and you can share it. I have my cards. And I'm definitely not opposed to giving everybody one of these.
Thank you.
Don't burn my phone up, but you can give me a call.
Jody did return my call, so she's good.
Actually, when she called me the last time, I was in Ontario, we were going camping and I was at the invasive species thing, getting my boat checked out. I was like, what is this number from Burns? She took it though. Yes.
She's been an asset. We've done good things in community in action since we chose her as our leader.
Any further? Sorry.
No, that was good.
Thank you, everybody. We need to stay on schedule here a little bit. We've got a lot to cover today. So, I thank you very much for your time, for coming over and giving us the update. Further communication update on how you serve in Harney County would be nice to have,
Yes.
continuing on. While, like I say, we didn't determine the need for a facility or a shelter, and maybe the minimalist of what we would have here to deal with might not get, and we would have more resources tied up in a facility than what was getting used, I think is kind of where we were at. But I think that outreach people is very, very needed, and help identify resources and services to anybody that's in those situations here in Harney County.
And I think everybody needs to realize it's not a one size fits all. We do things very different in Malheur County. When we did the 10-unit congregate housing, people laughed at us and said, that's never gonna work. And we said, well, what are we supposed to do? I mean, this is all we have. It's gonna work, and if it doesn't work, we're gonna have to shut the doors, and we're gonna be back out on the street. So we have to be really open to ideas that what can work in Harney County.
Yeah.
And the state with the executive order funding has been flexible with that, so that's greatly appreciated.
That's great. I found on these kind of things as well as others, Harney County often, if you keep the core elements, we can do that, but if they subscribe step-by-step laundry list of 20 things, we
Yeah.
can't.
No.
So, good. Thank you.
So I will do a recap of the conversation so that everybody has access to the updates, and I'll email them to you, and then you can share them.
Thank you so much, Jody. Appreciate it.
If you do that, we'll just add them to our agenda packet,
Absolutely.
and then that way it'll be a part of the record.
And one other thing, and then I can talk all day too. So as soon as we have our outreach specialists here on a regular basis, maybe we'll just put them on your agenda for quarterly or something, and they can give the updates.
Oh, that'd be
'Cause they're
great.
the ones that will be here in the area. We'll know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, thank you. All right, moving on, I don't see our veteran services representative present, so we're gonna have to skip that one for now. Minutes approval, we have several minutes that were tabled for attendance. Wanted to make sure everybody was here on the county court before approving these sessions. So the first is from September 18th, the county court session, regular session minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the county court session, regular session minutes from September 18th, 2024. Any further discussion? And hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, and opposed? Motion carries. Next set of minutes is from September 24th, 2024, Harney County Court Special Session.
Move to approve.
Second, and any further discussion? The motion's been made and seconded to approve the Harney County Court Special Session from September 24th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. And then September 25th, Harney County Court Work Session minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the September 25th Harney County Court Work Session minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? And hearing none, motion carries. And lastly, regular county court session minutes from October 2nd.
Move to approve?
I was not present.
Okay, abstaining?
Yes.
Okay, so, I'll second. And motion's been made and seconded to approve the county court regular session minutes from October 2nd. Any further discussion? The motion's, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and one abstention. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to opportunity for public comment. Anyone in attendance that would like to address the court? Anyone online actually too, and I apologize, a lot of times I probably forget to ask the people online, but is there anyone online or in the room who would like to address county court public comment? Not seeing anyone in the room, raise their hand, and not seeing any activity online, we'll move ahead then. Old business, on topic under old business is the public health and RHC structure, how we're gonna move ahead from the work session. We were discussed the possibilities, and we had decided to move ahead with a hiring of a public health director. But after that, I was contacted by Dana Drum. I got that right? I have to stop and think. And you actually had sent a brief PowerPoint, and I think it's informative. So if no objections, I just thought maybe she might bring some information to us and be able to shed some light on things and whatnot. So would you like to go to your presentation first?
Sure, that'd be great. I have paper copies in case that's.
Great, thank you.
So good morning, it's good to be with you. I'm Dana Drum, I'm the local and tribal public health manager at the Oregon Health Authority Public Health Division, and I read chat with Judge Hart yesterday. Thanks for having me, and good to see you again, Commissioner Dora. I don't think I've met you, Commissioner Sheldon, so nice to meet you. So as we talked yesterday, I know that there's been conversation just in general about sort of what are all the options around how public health can be structured locally. And so I wanted to just sort of, as briefly as possible, walk you through those, just so you have an understanding of what the landscape is.
Thank you.
And
By the way, do you teach at AOC County College?
I,
Perhaps you should.
we, you know, it's funny, one of my colleagues just said that it would be great if you would suggest that.
Okay.
I don't
I mean,
necessarily.
that's just one of the areas that new commissioners,
Yeah,
it would just be nice to
I
have
would
something
be
that I
happy
can
to
tell
do
about.
that, yes, if you would be willing to.
I'll put a bug in someone's ear.
Perfect, thank you. So I'll just kind of walk through the options briefly, not suggesting that you are considering all of these or that all are on the table, but I think it's just important to sort of understand what those are. So I'll do that and then happy to answer questions. And so, yeah, let's get going. So this is just a little bit about what I'll cover. I'll cover briefly kind of what the responsibilities of a local public health authority are, as well as of the governing body, which is you all. The local public health administrator role, and then I'll talk about specific models. Excellent. So in Oregon law, this is basically the options for what a local public health or authority can be. A county government, which is what Harney's model is. There can be a health district that's formed under a particular statute where there are two or more contiguous counties that come together and they form basically a public health district specific for that purpose. That is different from a hospital-related health district. A hospital-related health district isn't within their scope to be a public health district. And then also, you know, other intergovernmental entities can be formed under ORS 190. So
Would that be a taxing district?
no, it's not a taxing district. So it's different than a health district in that
Hospital is a
way.
taxing district.
Right, no, it is not a taxing district. Next.
could a district be formed, does it have to be formed between like two neighboring communities or
So-
counties, or could there be a district formed within a county?
If you form under ORS 443, it has to be two or more contiguous. I am less familiar with ORS 190, but if that is not a provision of ORS 190, that it has to be contiguous, then that presumably could be an option that would be explored. Obviously, we would want to have DOJ look at that, but yes, I mean, depending on what the terms of ORS 190 are. That's that broad statute that allows the forming of intergovernmental entities. So in terms of local public health responsibilities, these are the things that are specific, what we call governance functions, and I won't read through all of them, but these are specific functions that have to be done by government, by Oregon law. We have pulled them all together under an administrative rule, so they're all in one place because they sit in a lot of different places in Oregon revised statutes. But these are kind of some of the, core public health things, and the reason we want them, they need to be done by government or as a governance function is because they do have pieces to them that could affect people's individual rights. And so you wouldn't necessarily want a private organization having the ultimate authority around that, like enforcing laws, like seeking isolation orders for someone with a communicable disease who's not abiding by quarantine or isolation guidance. Those are just a couple of examples. Happy to answer any questions around those, but.
So are these services, are these mandated services, or are these just some of the services that LPHA?
These are the statutory responsibilities that a local public health authority must do. There's a lot that goes into each of these, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Dana, what might ensure access to mean?
So ensure access is making sure that those services are available in the community. Not all local public health authorities or health departments directly provide these services.
Thank you.
I will say that in some communities, this is the local public health authority is the main point of access for those services for a variety of reasons.
Thank you.
Again, some additional governance functions and specific statutory responsibilities. There was a public health modernization assessment that really assesses the capacity and expertise and financial need related to kind of foundational public health services and kind of capabilities that was done in 2016. It has recently been updated and was quite a feat. That where the data analysis is still happening around that. And then by December 31st, 2025, all local public health authorities will be required by statute to submit to OHA how their plan for overtime, course, resource dependent, how they're going to sort of fully implement or ensure access to all those foundational programs and capabilities.
On the third bullet, coordinate with CCOs and early learning hubs. There may be other people who do it, but I know that I, as a member of the county court, I'm active with those two entities in case you want to aware.
Are we, on the CCOs, it seemed like there was some issues with CCOs obtaining funds and whatnot that were not even in our area.
That had us listed as one of their service
Oh,
areas.
You're talking
but-
about community-based organizations.
CBO.
CBO, okay.
That's something.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and we are.
Wrong acronym.
Not an acronym, but it's still from.
Yeah.
In our eyes.
So yes, we do fund community-based organizations. I will say in the first round in particular, there were issues with CBOs, sort of, part of it was how we asked the question. We are asking the question differently now. Kind of broadly, what jurisdictions do you serve? And I think if they thought we got a call from someone from Harney County, yes, we're gonna answer their questions, so they might check the box. Now the question is more around where are you actually gonna actively be providing, engaging in services? I don't remember the exact phrase of the question. It's something we've been working closely with AOC and the Conference of Local Health Officials on. So we believe that's getting cleaned up. I think there are still some places where there are issues, and as we want to be aware of that so that we can work with those community-based organizations to get clarity and also help build relationships. I actually talked with the staff yesterday about that and sort of wanting to, needing to know where there are those gaps.
One of the things that was challenging when CBOs became a real focus of attention and funding opportunities, in my view, for representing Harney County, is we don't have a lot of those.
Mhm.
And yet, if all the money was gonna be going here and not very much for the non-CBO, because that's how we often do things here, that was challenging. Do you think that's more balanced now?
So I think, well, I will say that local public health authorities by far receive more dollars on the whole than community-based organizations do in terms of from public health. And I do believe that we have had a lot of lessons learned and are really looking to put those into place and have been doing that where we can. In 2025, all of the public health, so I want to be clear because there's some public health CBO funding, and then there are other parts of OHA that also fund CBOs, which I don't have anything to do with, nor do I know anything enough to speak to it. But on the public health side, any of the CBOs that are funded through that public health, that specific CBO grant opportunity will have to recompete. And that will also be a time when we can sort of recalibrate and readjust and ensure that communities are being served more fully.
Okay, thank you.
So you're saying that as they reapply, there will be an auditing of sorts of what services were provided in the past round? Or?
I'm not involved directly in that request for grant application, but what will happen is we will also be, one of the things we will be doing is looking at the amount of money that specific CBOs are receiving, where they're working, and sort of trying to do our best to ensure that proportionally there are not communities underserved by that funding or communities overserved by it. And then there will be a whole recompeting of the funding. So it is possible that CBOs who were funded previously would not be funded moving forward. And we certainly hope that new CBOs would be.
And just like, and this might not be the right analogy, but for instance, for funding, sometimes state has for communities under 50,000, then this rule applies as compared to all those over, things like when CBO funding is public health funding is going out there and there's communities like ours that don't have hardly any that would be able to compete for it or to even put in for it. Is there any can there be language moving forward, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, just providing some input that, would have that proviso that for communities with fewer than X number of appropriate CBOs, they may also put in for this funding or something like that.
I don't know that I don't think it would be likely, just reading the tea leaves, that there would be something that specific where it would go to the LPHA instead of the CBO. Because it's different work. It's supposed to be different work. There will be, I think it's more likely that there would be some capacity building dollars so that if there was not a CBO, or perhaps there was a faith community. I think often faith communities get overlooked. Mm-hmm. And we actually, in some communities, they have applied for CBO funding and have received it. But really looking, capacity building to sort of help those entities also sort of over time build more capacity to receive those dollars. I think we're looking at a lot of options. We currently are piloting kind of a pass-through model where there could be, where there are a couple of counties piloting where the funds go to the LPHA and then they hold the contracts with the CBOs, because that was something that was desired. So I think we're looking at a variety of things.
That sounds okay to me.
There are also, right now, we do have some counties that it was really clear that there were gaps. I understand there may be some other gaps that don't show up in the same way, where we are looking at passing through some dollars where they could do some mini grants with some community-based organizations or faith communities for very specific projects to kind of see how that works. So we're really trying
Good. Thank you.
to take in the feedback and figure out what's the right way. You know, I think it probably has to be a menu of options. All right. Governing bodies. So the governing body of a local public health authority, it depends on how you're structured. So for yourselves as the county government as the LPHA, the governing body of the county is the governing body. There used to be this thing that called the local board of health. That's no longer in statute, if it ever was. That basically is you all. There, you know, some county commissioners, it was really important to gavel in the Board of Health. I think there's some that still do it. That actually doesn't mean anything. Just by your very existence, it's the county court. You are the governing body of the public health authority. If it's a district, and it's done under that statute where there's 2 contiguous counties for public health, then that district has its own board. There are a couple of ways that can be structured that are outlined in statute. And then the terms of the intergovernmental entity formed through ORS 190 would define who the board was. So this is really, you know, it's really dependent on what the structure is. Next. So you all have some very specific responsibilities. One is to appoint a qualified local public health administrator. They have to be at least a part-time salaried employee of the county government in your case. In your case, it's been a tradition for some time that the county judge is the local public health administrator. We consider him, because he's the county judge full-time, we consider him the full-time public health administrator. This becomes important when I talk about one of the models. Here are some other things that you're responsible for, but it's generally kind of oversight of what the local public health authority as the county government is doing. Next. So the administrator. This can be a position, but that's not required. That's actually quite uncommon in our state. I can think of only one situation where the public health administrator is also the public health officer and is a physician. And then that person's responsibility is to employ or contract with the local public health officer if they aren't a physician and acting as a health officer. Or as a health administrator. Again, sort of, they're responsible for the day-to-day operations, and really just carrying out the public health services of the jurisdiction. And then they act as an agent of OHA when enforcing state public health laws. So part-time, if you were to consider having a part-time local public health administrator, you do have to ask for permission from OHA to do that. We generally approve these, but yeah, I can't think of a time when we didn't, but there are specific things that have to be they have to be covered. And again, this is because there are those very specific governance functions within the local public health authority, and most often it's the local public health administrator who ultimately has responsibility for those governance functions. So this is where we get to the juicy part. So most public health services in Oregon are done through the county government. They often have a county health department, or it's a division within Health and Human Services, the Health and Human Services Agency within the county government. And I will say, in talking with Judge Hart, I mean, I think there's been some conversation around hiring a health services administrator. as a possible model in Harney. That actually we're seeing more and more, even in rural communities where that all is happening under one umbrella. And, so depending on the size, often that person who oversees that overall umbrella is the local public health administrator. In larger communities, the public health director of that, if there's a division of public health, plays that role. But I would say in smaller communities, it generally is that Health and Human Services Director. We have one public health district in Oregon. It used to be Wasco, Sherman, Gillum. Gillum exited that agreement and now they have their own local public health authority. We have several counties that provide the governance functions, but they contract everything else out. And there are 2 counties that have transferred local public health authority to OHA, and those are Wallowa and Curry County. I am kind of the de facto local public health administrator of those 2. I am not looking to build a queendom and do not want any more. So. So again, the county government model, this is least complicated because really all or most of the responsibilities sit within the governmental entity and it's just a lot cleaner. And the governance functions are more easily formed. And there's also, my observation, a stronger direct connection with the governing body, which I think is essential. Next. The next is a public health district. This is where the LPHA has its own governing body. I've already kind of explained that. It does require negotiation of agreements between county governing bodies to establish it, maintain it, but it can be less complicated once it's established.
But you said there's only one in the.
But there's only one. And they recently went through sort of a partial divorce. So, it likely is still going to require county investment. I think the misnomer is that this will absolve the county of any funding needing. It doesn't do that. And then, or it typically does not do that. Requires the public health administrator that's a salaried employee of the governmental entity to do so. Next. So contracting it out, this is actually, in my opinion, the most complicated model. And I think the misnomer about this is that counties contract it out and then the governing bodies don't have to deal with it ever again. You are still the local public health authority as the governing body. That contractor is not, and you are still responsible for ensuring governance functions are done in a way that adhere to the law and are still performed by the county government. This is where a part-time local public health administrator can come in because often what happens is the person who's leading that work at the contractor is also a part-time local public health administrator, receives some salary directly from the county. And, but I will also say that sometimes that creates, there have been times when there are questions of conflicts of interest have emerged. Because it's the person who's the public health administrator who's responsible for overseeing public health services, then is also the person overseeing the performance of the contract. So that is complicated. Also, if you want to go to the next slide, there are, this you can't just go off and do. We have to have at least 75-day notice of it. Actually, I think it takes longer than that because it's a pretty significant transition. And then you still have to be engaged on an ongoing basis, and this seems to be more challenging in some of these situations. Also, there's pretty significant fiscal and programmatic subcontractor and federal, what are called subrecipient monitoring that has to be done of the contractor, and it is complex and it requires county staff time. So again, it's not a sort of fix it and forget it kind of thing. Next. Transfer of a local public health authority. You already know my feelings about that just because I'm not looking to oversee anymore, but I will if I have to. It requires a minimum of 180 days notice. There are some funding thresholds that have to go unmet by the legislature for an LPHA to be transferred to OHA. The legislature has never met that threshold, and so any county in Oregon can transfer. We are not obligated to take on county public health employees in these situations based on, how we've been advised by DOJ, and we do not come set up a health department in your county. We perform very basic public health functions. We do that, with potentially a few contractors, maybe. We don't always do that. And the work is performed by OHA staff, and the county governing body no longer has a role in public health authority locally. Next. These are the things we will do. There's no prevention in there. Again, like a lot of this gets done from Portland, or we send our staff out. And the state health officer is the health officer for the jurisdiction. Next. So it results in a significant reduction of public health services. It creates significant disruption for your community. And once a transfer occurs, generally you can't request to have it transferred back until at least 4 years after that transfer has occurred.
So, except for possibly the governing body perspective, do you ever hear favorable things about the transfer of LPHA? I mean, I don't think that would be a good idea myself, but I'm just.
No,
of the two counties that have done that, and
what I hear from community
Small
members
pool.
is they are very dissatisfied.
yeah. This is the best presentation of this that I've seen.
Oh, thank you.
I can't find my new commissioner handbook anymore, but whatever was in there wasn't as good as this, I know.
Okay.
And,
Well, I don't think I probably provided the information.
no, you didn't.
And
Emily.
most people don't care about
But
this
this
and
is
therefore
really
don't
good.
know it.
I appreciate that. That's really solidified what I thought I knew.
Okay,
And
good.
added some that I didn't know,
Great.
so thank you.
So I'm happy to answer questions. Also happy to support however you all need moving forward. Joe Chart and I talked some about that yesterday. The other thing I did want to mention that I think he felt would be helpful, so you will receive a chunk of public health, what we call public health modernization funding through the public health intergovernmental agreement. I do believe you guys are underspent, although I can't remember, but Kelly knows. And so I do think we're in this place where folks are concerned, like